Christianity in my teenage years. And then later I came to realize that I was wrong in my criticism, and that, I thought the New Testament was a jumble of contradictions, but when you read it with faith, you see that it's a cohesive whole. It's telling you, the Gospels paint an image, a stereo image of the Christ. So it's...
In this surprising debate, a Muslim takes on Sam Shamoun and delivers arguments that leave the seasoned apologist speechless for the first time ever. With thought-provoking points and unexpected challenges, the conversation takes a turn no one saw coming. This exchange is a rare moment of pause and reflection, showing that even the most experienced debaters can encounter perspectives that challenge them in unexpected ways.
But I'm the Trinitarian Muslim, so we had a nice talk. And then you came on Avery's show.
I got you
over the debate. So, and I'm intimidated because I have both of you. I wasn't expecting Jay. I'm still a Muslim nominally, even though I've come to realize that I was mistaken in being against the Trinity. I mean, to help Jay, because Jay doesn't know me. I had a religious experience when I was about 22 years old. So I believe, Christ kind of, spoke to me, I guess, without words or without seeing him. Oh. And I realized, ever since I was 14, I would look at the New Testament and I would try to memorize the subordinationist arguments, and I knew all of them. And then one day, I feel like the Holy Spirit just hit me on the head with the 2x4.
So how are you still a Muslim if you're Trinitarian? That's weird.
Yeah, it is. I'll concede to you, I'm definitely a church of one, and I'm not happy about that position. But I would say though, yes, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost.
All right. That's
so. In nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti is also a good formula. But I feel like, I would submit you guys this thesis, just to, not to, because also one of the things is, you guys have a hard job, Avery too. It's you deal with trolls, insincere people, personal attacks. Could I submit to you guys maybe a thesis, right? Because I feel like Islam is an offshoot of Christianity. I know all my Muslim brothers would not like me for saying that. And I know we don't want to say that because obviously our first thing is that, we're not derivative. But I feel especially when you look at Orthodox, Christianity and the monastic tradition, monks were so important in the 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries. Saint Isaac of Nineveh, Saint Gregory of Nyssa, Codex Sinaiticus was written by the monastery at St. Catherine's in the Sinai. So if you didn't have this monastic tradition, people who just gave up the world for Christ, you really wouldn't have that was so important in the first few centuries of Christianity. And it's hard for us to fathom today because, who wants to live in a monastery now?
Are you affirming the monastic life?
Yeah, I think, I would love to discern it.
So you mean 57:27 the Quran where it says they invented it.
Yeah, but hold on. It also says though, God will accept it of them.
Okay.
Because of their good intentions.
If they do it rightly, if they do it correctly.
Yeah.
But that's
it doesn't condemn them for being celibate, by the way. Islam was deeply influenced by these Christian monastics. And in fact, even yesterday, Avery was talking about the story of Alexander arriving at the setting of the sun in the muddy spring. And that comes from an Aramaic tradition of where Alexander finds the sun setting in the spring, of muddy water.
Brother, before you move on, you really confuse me because you're an amazing different. So you're admitting Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander the Great?
Yeah, I don't see who else it could be.
Dude, you're not a Muslim anymore, so why don't you just give it up?
I know Avery's trying to tell me the same thing. You're
not a Muslim because you're admitting to everyone in chapter 18, read 83 to 98, Dhul Qarnayn, the two-horned one, is Alexander, and yet all the evidence we have is that Alexander was not a believer, in spite of what later legends say. And the Quran says that he was a believer who followed Allah. But historically, that's not the case, right?
Yeah, historically, he probably wasn't.
So then you're saying the Quran is wrong. So how are you following the Quran?
Like I said, that is, you do have me nailed there, Brother Sam. I would just say this, right? I think he was kind of a pluralist king. And maybe he might have had a monotheistic ethic. I don't know. But he was marrying Persian wives out of practicality. You had to marry, he had the largest landmass empire the world ever had. But
Anam, it's over. Repeat after me, man. Ashadu.
Okay, wait, hold on. I don't want to have that discussion about how you enter Christianity, right? Because in other words, with all due respect, right? My religion's the one that you enter faith upon giving testimony as witness. Your religion, especially in the 7th century, the way you enter the faith is through baptism of water.
Yeah, but if you're a convert, it's not either or, because if you read Romans 10, 9 to 13, and Romans 6, 3 to 6, and Acts 22, 16, in your act of baptism, there has to be a confession. There is a confession that you confess with your mouth Jesus Lord and call upon his name. That's done at baptism. If you look at Acts 22, 16, with Paul's own conversion, which he mentions Romans 6, 3 to 6, in Romans 10, 9 to 13. So in your act of baptism, you have to make that confession. Because you're a convert, you're not an infant. We're not baptizing as an infant.
Yeah. I have.
So what's stopping you?
Well, could I feel like, okay, what's stopping me is, I was telling this to Avery yesterday. Actually, so I grew up in a Muslim family, Muslim culture, Muslim tradition. I liked most of it, right? It gave me my morality. And, not for nothing, right? Islam actually, teaches you to study the other religions, right? To read those holy books and to analyze them and to in other words, Islam gave me, even though, like I said, I was combative against Christianity in my teenage years, and then later I came to realize that I was wrong in my criticism, and that, I thought the New Testament was a jumble of contradictions, but when you read it with faith, you see that it's a cohesive whole. It's telling you, the Gospels paint an image, a stereo image of the Christ. So it's very valuable to read those works. But I would say though, so growing up Muslim, I feel like this is where I'm at right now, right? Islam started as a Christian movement composed of mostly monastics, monks, monk types, people who were just borrowing from monasteries, which were the culture centers of literacy back then. And then it eventually morphed into this combative relationship with Christianity. But it used to be somewhat conciliatory even. And then later you have this antagonism. So I feel like I'm part of I feel like original Islam would have been adjacent to Christianity. And for example, when you bring up the argument...
Let me interject real quickly. If you're going by the earliest evidence, and Jay is the expert in this area, but John of Damascus, John the Damascene, 8th century, 700s, writing in Syria, says that Muhammad was actually preaching Arianism, that there was a monk who was of the persuasion of Arianism, taught what Arius taught, and that's what Islam is. So he agrees that it's a sect of Islam, but it's Arian, but you're Trinitarian. If you're a Trinitarian Muslim, you're not even faithful to the type of Islam that Islam claimed to be. In other words, if I go by John of Damascus, Islam is an Arian sect. So you would not be a Trinitarian, you'd be an Arian. But you're not an Arian, you're a Trinitarian. So historically, you're out of Islam no matter how you slice it.
One thing I'll add to, just to back up Sam's point, is that a lot of people for a long time had contentions with that claim of St. John Damascus that it was Arian and Nestorian monastics that influenced early Islam. But the present day Oxford Handbook of Islam, the whole chapter on early Islam in that book actually vindicates John Damascus. And today scholars admit that it was early Arian Nestorian Christianity that influenced Muhammad.
And to confirm a little further, there is a statement in the Hadith where when Muhammad is supposedly writing to Heraclius, I say supposedly, he then says if he doesn't accept his conditions, then the guilt of the Arasiyin will fall on you. That's the word, Arasiyin. There are scholars like Ibn Yasir Qadi who claim that Arasiyin means what was done to the followers of Arius because of Byzantine Christianity. That judgment will fall on you. So if we go with that statement, that means Muhammad thought he was defending the followers of Arius.
Very interesting.
So you got it, buddy. You're Trinitarian.
I read in a that's a valid point. But I would just, the only thing I would say, and then Avery wants to move on to the next guest. I want to be respectful to my host. St. John of Damascus, his work was called The Heresy of the Ishmaelites. So that is the thesis that I'm proposing, that this is an Ishmaelite heresy, rather than
you're a Trinitarian.
Right. But
faithful to historic Islam.
I got you. Beautiful talking to you guys. Nice meeting you, Brother Jay. Have a great evening.
See you later, Nam. Peace. Good to see you again, man.
Wow. I'm baffled, dude. But hey, man, hopefully he'll get baptized soon. Let's see. We'll see. I don't know.
We'll see.
Trinitarian Muslim. Okay.
The Trinitarian Muslim, that's right.
This debate between Sam Shamoun and the Muslim scholar revolves around several intriguing topics, including theology, personal religious evolution, historical influences on Islam, and the scholar's own identification as a Trinitarian Muslim. Here's a detailed commentary on the key areas touched in this debate. Self-identification as a Trinitarian Muslim. The scholar's declaration of being a Trinitarian Muslim presents an inherently paradoxical concept. Islam explicitly rejects the Trinity, Surah 4:171, emphasizing the oneness of God, Tawhid. Trinitarianism, on the other hand, affirms a triune nature of God, a cornerstone of Christian theology. This claim reflects deep personal conflict, as the scholar appears caught between Islamic cultural roots and a profound spiritual experience that inclines him toward Christianity. He shares his transformative spiritual experience, which led him to view the Trinity in a new light. He remains connected to Islamic identity, citing the morality and cultural teachings it provided him. His perspective indicates an ongoing struggle to reconcile personal beliefs with religious doctrines. The scholar's position underscores the complex interplay between faith, culture, and personal experiences. His journey exemplifies how religious identity can be multifaceted and nonlinear. Historical and monastic influences on Islam. The scholar suggests that Islam has deep historical roots in Christianity, particularly influenced by monastic traditions. He highlights how early Islamic traditions might have drawn from Christian monastic communities, which were centers of literacy and spiritual dedication. He references St. John of Damascus's view that Islam was a Christian heresy influenced by Arianism and Nestorianism. The Quranic verse about celibacy, Quran 57:27, and its acknowledgement of monasticism is cited as evidence of early Christian influence. He proposes that early Islam was more conciliatory toward Christianity, later shifting to antagonism. The claim aligns with scholarly arguments about the syncretic origins of Islam, which likely assimilated ideas from nearby Christian, Jewish, and pagan traditions. The acknowledgement of monasticism in Islamic sources lends credibility to this thesis. However, this line of reasoning distances itself from mainstream Islamic doctrine, which views Islam as a divinely revealed and distinct faith. The Quranic story of Dhul Qarnayn. The discussion of Dhul Qarnayn, Quran 18:83-98, as Alexander the Great introduces a historical and exegetically challenge. The scholar admits that identifying Dhul Qarnayn as Alexander poses contradictions with the Quranic portrayal of him as a monotheistic follower of Allah. The Quranic narrative describes Dhul Qarnayn as a believer in Allah, yet historical accounts portray Alexander as a polytheist. Sam Shamoun emphasizes the inconsistency, urging the scholar to acknowledge this discrepancy as undermining the Quran's historical accuracy. This debate highlights a common point of contention in Islamic apologetic. While traditional Muslim scholarship often avoids definitive claims about Dhul Qarnayn's identity, identifying him with Alexander creates theological and historical tensions. Entrance into Christianity. The scholar's hesitation to fully embrace Christianity stems from his cultural and familial ties to Islam. He acknowledges the significance of baptism and the Christian confession of faith but hesitates to take the final step. Key discussion points. He values the moral teachings of Islam and its encouragement of interfaith study. He appreciates the coherence of the New Testament when read with faith but struggles to leave behind his Islamic upbringing. Sam Shamoun and others encourage him to act on his spiritual convictions by seeking baptism. The scholar's struggle is a relatable human dilemma when individuals grapple with the tension between spiritual transformation and the fear of losing their cultural identity and familial bonds. The conversation ends with the scholar expressing gratitude for the dialogue and hinting at potential future steps toward baptism. His candid acknowledgement of internal conflicts humanizes the theological debate, providing a relatable narrative for those navigating complex faith transitions. The dialogue concludes on a hopeful note, reflecting the scholar's openness to exploring his spiritual journey further. It also showcases the importance of respectful, meaningful interfaith discussions in fostering understanding. Final reflections. This debate illustrates a unique interplay between personal experiences, historical scholarship, and theological inquiry. The scholar's self-identification as a Trinitarian Muslim challenges conventional religious boundaries and opens up conversations about the shared histories and values between Islam and Christianity. Both Sam Shamoun and the scholar display intellectual rigor, offering thought-provoking insights for audiences from diverse faith backgrounds.